What is going on, guys? Rodney here with Crypto Bros. Welcome to tonight's video. Yes, I did get my haircut. Thank you for noticing. But what we're going to be talking about today is the current state of the market. I got quite a few things to cover. I'm going to tell you guys what I've been doing with this kind of lull, what's kind of been going on with some of the news stories in Bitcoin, and yeah, and my overall thoughts. So let's get into this. So first things first, I'm going to start with some of these news stories. And I think a lot of this plays into the the bearish market that we've seen over the last 7 to 10 days. As we can see right here, though, everything is looks to be recovering. Not, I don't want to say looks to be recovering, but a lot of green on the charts. It obviously doesn't take a wizard to see that. Some of these coins up 20 and 30%. Icon is up 41.14%. That's super impressive. But we're starting to see a lot of these things come back down. And if we look at kind of what's been going on, it's been a lot of negative news mixed with a bearish market. And I think some things were highly blown out of proportion. We had the whole ordeal with like banks and credit cards. We had the stuff about the FUD in India and then banning Bitcoin. We've got the hearing going on today, or went on this morning. And if we kind of take a step back and look at those things, like I think the media does a very nice job at blowing some of those things out of proportion. Like me personally, I don't think the whole banning credit cards thing is that big of a deal. If we it took me a little bit to kind of come to this conclusion, but I think this was a protective notion towards their own business. Like if you look at it, like people were maxing out credit cards to buy Bitcoin. So if you bought Bitcoin at 15 or 20K and you maxed out a credit card, not only did you max out that credit card, you bought it at one of the highest spots, and that investment is technically upside down. So I think that's just a precautionary movement on their end. On a lot of these major banking platforms, you can still use your credit card. In terms of the India FUD, I think there were some things that were misconstrued in those articles that came out. I think their approach was more so looking at it from like a legality, like illegal movements and that type of thing. But even if it wasn't and they did ban Bitcoin, their volume, like India's volume and activity in Bitcoin in terms of trading was not anything like major. It was a small portion, so that really wouldn't have such a large scale effect. But those two news stories come out, and those type of things are what in these markets are so finicky that they can turn something around really quickly and easily get blown out of proportion, especially by different media news sources. The other thing going on today, if you didn't know, there is this hearing, and this is the virtual currencies. The oversight role of U.S. Securities and Exchange Commissions and the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission. So basically what they were looking at today, there's a bunch of things that were going on. They're basically trying to identify, if cryptocurrencies are a token or security or what it is or what it's used. So there was this pretty large hearing going on in terms of like its use cases. Now I'll tell you, I didn't get a chance to watch this. Obviously, I was at work today. It is now almost 7 p.m. I've done a little bit of reading on it, and the overall theme on this hearing today was actually positive, like a positive outcome. Yes, there were some things that needed to be amended, and there's some negativity sprinkled in that. But I think the biggest killer of momentum, especially in this space, is not necessarily like regulation, but the uncertainty of what is coming next. I think just plays such a large role here. So getting this out and open and having a somewhat positive experience, I think is very good. And coincidentally enough, this was this morning. We've seen this this resurgence of green. Who's here? Oh, the old tether. Look at that. We've seen this resurgence of green back in the market, and I think that's a nice thing for basically everybody sitting in the market to just see some type of like normalcy come back, or some type of green, or their portfolio bounce back a little bit. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts in terms of like the news that's going on, how this ties in. If we swing over to Bitcoin, right, I think there's a couple I hope I still have this open. I think there's a couple major factors here. I'm not necessarily going to chart this out. I've seen quite a few basically, I don't want to say calls, but important resistance slash support points. The first one being 9,000. That would be a heavy resistance point. If we can get through that, that's good. And the second one being 12,000, so right around there. But also, I've seen some calls for calling this some like on a more zoomed in chart, even some head and shoulder patterns, things getting ready to break out. But I think the main thing in terms of I'm not necessarily good at technical analysis, but we're starting to see some buy volume down here, and that's a really, really good sign. I'm sorry that you can't really see that. This is on the 4-hour chart, but we do have quite a bit a heavy buy volume here, and obviously we can see the bounce as a result of that buy volume. So, positive trends in terms of Bitcoin. Now, do I think this is just going to go 0 to hero in just a minute? Back up to all-time highs? I don't. I think we're going to, if we come out of this on top. I think it's going to be kind of a slower road to the top. But I've also heard this theory, and I find this super interesting and maybe very true in terms of big money players. If someone was shorting the market, there's basically not a whole lot left to short. Like if they shorted it from 20K to 10K, that's a huge percentage-wise. Then if they shorted from 10 to 8 and then 8 to 5, like each time that they're doing this to push this down, it's getting much smaller. So I can't necessarily say that we're at the bottom, but we are starting to finally see some buy volume, which we haven't had in a long time. So that's a positive thing. If we kind of just flip over to some of these markets and whatnot, it's just great to see some green out here. I mean, some of these coins got hammered, hammered. So to see some of them up, 20, 30% is super refreshing. Binance is always my favorite exchange. If we flip over to Gate here, let's see who the top players are on Gate. QuantStamp leading the charge at 29%. I wonder if I refresh this, but actually it doesn't matter. Icon and Nebulous both at 20 and almost 17%. So some pretty good moves here, guys. And I think we, as a community, just kind of needed to see this. And I'm not saying people necessarily lost faith. What I honestly do think is this bought one of the best buying opportunities we may see in all of 2018. And that's basing it on historical value, but also a break here. We've came off this crazy bull run market. And I felt like at the time we were just hustling and consistently trying to find the next good project and the next emerging coin and getting at this price point. So it was taking over. So during this, this slowdown, this bearish market, I think it actually was a good thing. And there was a couple routes that you could have taken. I know a lot of people, stopped looking or didn't open their portfolios or didn't care. I think when things slow down like this, if you don't walk away, right, if you don't move to the next on or shut down for a little bit, I think this is a perfect time to do a couple things. One, to continue to do your research on up and coming coins, right? You could have found a lot of hidden gems in here at rock bottom prices. One coin that I actually moved in on, and this is fairly new, it is this Zilliqua. And I think I bought this last week on the dip at around 7 cents, and we're almost back up to break even. We're just about to break 6 cents. But I just feel like if you were working ahead and doing some research here, you could have got a lot of good buys if you're going back into the market. Granted, I bought on the dip, but then it dipped further. So it is what it is. I'm not upset about it. But so one thing, definitely continue to do your research and find some of these great coins or take positions in things that you didn't have a chance to do earlier. Trust me, there's plenty of opportunities that I missed, NEO being one of them. It just didn't fit the budget. The other thing that I think is super important to do is learn from this crash. If this is the first time that you have went through this, and you're upset about the hits your portfolio took in the short term, maybe next time as you start, hitting some of these 2, 3, 4, 500% gains, you can start scalping a little bit of those and pulling it off the top. So the next time we go through a major correction like this, you're not seeing your $10, $20, $30,000 portfolio down to $1,000 or whatever it is, or if you're a huge fish, multi-millions down to hundreds of thousands. So you can take some things away from this correction and apply it before the next time that happens. One thing that I was working on doing is definitely consolidating my portfolio and being more organized. Would I have loved to maybe hedge out a little bit in fiat, and as things dropped even deeper, have a chunk of money sitting there so I could buy it in it even lower? I absolutely would have. But I mean, I'm not the most organized when it comes to position sizes and where everything is, and how organized it is. So I definitely got a good takeaway. So the next time that this happens, I hope that I can approach this a little more strategically. Don't get me wrong, I'm a long-term hodler. I didn't sell off. I didn't cash out. I didn't sell at the bottom. I rode it through. Would I have liked to take advantage of maybe around when we saw BitK around 10 grand? Would I have liked to dock some of that in USD, let it drop further, and then rebuy in with that same dollar amount, but get more for my money? Absolutely. But for me to consolidate some of my positions, get it off. Get it out of wallets or get it off exchanges to put into USD and then back in. It would have been a task in its own, and when I'm already not that organized to begin with, it wasn't the best play. So where I could, I basically just rebought back in, re-upped positions of projects that I liked, and then rode it through. And here we are, a week later, starting to see some upside in the market, which is great. But the takeaway of all this is, I didn't walk away. I didn't quit making videos. I didn't disconnect. If anything, great learning experience for everybody. And this exposed my weakness in terms of organization and some of the other things that I have going on. So all good things. All good things to be learned from this correction. I still am very bullish on cryptocurrency, on the technology that it brings, on where this is going to be long term. If you think about it, once we get to May, June, July, August in the year, you guys probably, myself included, I probably won't even remember any of this ever happened. It's not like I'm gonna be like, tell my grandkids that the great crypto crash of 2018. I don't think that'll be the case at all. This will be one little blip on this large radar that we have, and we won't even remember it, maybe. But anyway, guys, that is all I have for you tonight. If I have any advice for you, I would say get organized. So the next time this happens, you're not upset with yourself. Maybe readjust your profit-taking strategy if you have one. If you don't care if you can stomach these, then it's not a big deal at all. But if you can't and you're super bummed out, maybe organize there. If you're not re-signing up for a lot of these or getting into some of these new exchanges, I would definitely go there. My top three at this point are Binance, Gate.io. Gate.io overtook KuCoin. But these are my top three. But I would immerse yourself and get a couple more accounts set up. There's going to be a bunch more cool projects, cool things, cool blockchains, platforms, apps that are all coming out, and you want to be positioned to attack that head on in 2018. I think this is going to be a huge year for cryptocurrency. Yes, we got off to a rocky start, but when you hit rock bottom, all you can go is up. So anyway, guys, that is all I have for you this evening. Thank you for tuning in. I'll have a video for you tomorrow night, and then I am off to Vegas for a few days. If you're in the area and you want to buy me a beer, go ahead and shoot me a message in my Twitter. You can follow me at Rod Crypto God. But in all seriousness, guys, thanks for tuning in. I'll check you all tomorrow. Have a great night, and I will see you later.